All right. Welcome, Valdamar Archuleta, to the Baptize Machine Podcast. Thanks for coming in person today.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, that's our intro song. It's called "Get the Drugs Out of the Car."
Yeah, I can't hear it.
I know you shouldn't have
I opted out of the headphones.
Yeah. You look better without them. It's okay. But yeah, anyway, Wallstreet Bitch here, and we're glad you could come. We have some questions for you. We wanted to just start off. We usually let our guests just introduce themselves. I know you've been on once before, when it was me and you on Zoom or like over a video call. So yeah, if you want to just reintroduce yourself to the show, maybe let us know how you're feeling about the upcoming election. Really exciting to see you on the ballot in Colorado. So congratulations.
It is. It's really cool. I had a lot of people sending me pictures of their ballot with a little bubble filled in and my name being there. I even had some Democrat friends who sent me pictures of their ballot where they wrote my name in the Democrat side. So that was kind of cool. It is good to be here. I think that you were probably one of the first interviews I did after I announced. Because back then nobody cared about who I was. I did like one radio interview and that was it because I knew the host there, so she had me on, and then I came on here, and I think that you guys were probably one of the first ones, like the second at least. So I appreciate that. Your podcast has a special place in my heart for that reason.
That's great to hear.
Because like I said, no one cared back then. I'm now with some more recent things. People are wanting to talk to me all of a sudden. But for anyone out there maybe who doesn't know, my name is Valdamar Archuleta. I am running for Colorado's first congressional district, which is the city of Denver. It's a very easy district to know because it pretty much follows the city lines all the way around. There are a few little parts of Arapahoe County at the bottom, and that little city of Glendale, which is like a little island in the middle of Denver, is also technically part of Arapahoe County. And so I'm doing this. I was born and raised here in Denver. Graduated George Washington High School in 1997. Denver's home. I love the city. I think there are things that can make it better, but it's a good place. I'm not going to go around like trashing Denver like it's so terrible. No, it's a good city, great people. And for a while I moved away. I did live in New York City for like 6 years. Moved back. I was down in Colorado Springs for a while. A little tiny town of Walsenburg for a few years. But I'm back home in Denver. And the opportunity came up. Some people had asked me about running in 22. And I was like, heck no, I ain't doing that. Like, this is crazy. I can't run for Congress. But it started some conversations about how the platform could be used to talk about certain issues and solutions with different demographics around the city and maybe bring some different ideas to the conversation. Because when you live in a place like Denver, where it's kind of like there's one party rule and it doesn't matter which party it is, the other party, the other side kind of gets just shut out of the conversation. And I think no matter where you are, the people deserve to hear different viewpoints, whether it's a super red area or a super blue area. So I decided to do it, throw my hat in the ring and see what happens. And it's been kind of a wild ride so far, but it's been good.
Awesome. Is this what you were expecting? Were you expecting to get on the ballot, or was it kind of a long shot?
Well, I did. I figured if I ran, I would make it to the general in November because there's not a lot of people who run as a Republican in Colorado's first congressional district. Actually, almost the opposite happened. Because I didn't expect anyone to even challenge me. I figured once people saw, oh, there's someone running, it's taken care of. That's fine. But there ended up being 3 of us running in Congressional District 1, which is almost unheard of. There was one other guy. I think he was very genuine and sincere in his wanting to run. But he didn't really have much political experience or ties at all. I don't think there was anyone running his campaign. And so no one really knew who he was. And then there was one lady who was running. I think she was mainly running because she didn't like me. And she wanted...
Really?
She wanted. I don't know. I think she was hoping that she can get me out of this seat and she would be the candidate. But she also she kind of jumped in at the very last minute. I had heard rumors that she was going to do that. And like a week before assembly, she announced and put her name in, and that was that. But I don't know. Are you guys familiar with the whole assembly process we have here in Colorado?
No, I was actually going to ask, can you, and forgive me for not knowing, I think a lot of people just aren't really familiar with, and it's arguably more important a lot of times than
it is. And like, I went through it twice, and I still did not know what the heck was going on or what I was doing. I always tell people, don't worry, half the people in that room when you go to caucus, well, I was like 75% of the people in the room at caucus have no idea what's going on. They just showed up and they kind of go along with what they're told. And
interesting.
You are guided along, so you don't have to know. I do recommend anyone out there show up to your caucus, whichever party you're in, and you will be guided through the process. But it is complicated. I'm not really a big fan of the whole caucus assembly system.
Yeah, what? And so all of Colorado goes by the caucus rules, or is it just the Republican
I think
party?
It's just the two big parties.
Just the two, okay.
They both do it. I'm not sure if libertarians, they might, like the other parties might, because I think in Colorado, I was just telling you guys, I just had lunch with Aaron Lamb, who's the libertarian mayor of Kingsburg. But he was telling me that, Colorado is one of the states where like the libertarians are on the ballot. So if you're the libertarian nominee, you're on. So they might, I don't know. But basically, to get on the ballot, if you want to be elected, to get on the primary ballot, there are two ways to do it. One is to get a bunch of signatures and petition onto the ballot. The other is to go through the caucus system or the assembly system. Caucus is where you meet in your precincts. They usually have a bunch of people meet together in different districts. And then they'll each precinct will send someone to the like Congressional District 1 assembly. And then at assembly, the people who go to assembly vote for someone to be on the ballot.
I see.
Some people feel that that's more of a grassroots way of getting on. It's definitely a more cost efficient way to get on if you can. Because it costs money sometimes to petition on, because you have to get the petitions printed out. And then get people to either volunteer or hire people to go get signatures. But to go through assembly, you need at least 30% of the vote of the people at assembly to be on the ballot. So 3 people could technically get on the ballot through the assembly process. But I happened to get 74% of the vote, which meant nobody else was going to make it. So
that's awesome. And so how many people from each district are elected? Is it just one, or how does that work?
It depends. And then, like they said, you do this through like for your congressional candidates, but you also do it for House district candidates. So if you want to run for a House district, you do the same thing. The House district has an assembly, and you need 30% to get on. So again, technically, 3 people could get on through the assembly process.
I see.
It depends on how much of the vote goes whatever way.
Interesting. So you've been in Denver your whole life, right?
Pretty much. I was born and raised here, although technically I was born in Inglewood. I was born at Swedish Medical Center.
It's close enough.
But the next day we came back to Denver. Like I said, I grew up here. I went to Westwood Elementary School, which does not exist anymore. They tore it down and replaced it with Castro Elementary School. But I lived here till I was about 19, and then I moved to New York City for 6 years. Came back to Colorado, went down to Southern Colorado for a while, and I've been back in Denver for about 8 years now. But I've been connected to Denver that whole time because I had family here, so I'd always come back and visit several times a year. So,
and Denver was probably. I
know there's chaos in this studio.
Sorry, there's dogs everywhere. Wait, they're messing with all the cords.
That's okay. What's a good podcast without a little bit of cut this part out. This is the best part. Everyone's gonna watch this podcast just to see the dogs. They're gonna
all right, they'll calm down in a bit. So in terms of the changes that Denver has made over the past 20 years, I've been here for like 8 years. He's been here a little bit longer, but we didn't really live in Denver, and we've heard a lot of different things. Would you say overall, the issues that local Denver people face? Have they gotten better, stayed the same? Have they gotten worse? Has the marijuana legalization changed us for the good or for worse? Because I hear arguments on both sides.
I think things are different. Whether they're better or worse,
it's hard to say.
Is kind of debatable. Yeah. From the time I grew up, Denver was like a small city when I was a little kid in like the 80s. And, I was a little kid, so, I played in the backyard in the dirt and whatever, and that's all I really cared about. So I didn't pay attention to a lot of like politics or what the city was like. But I do feel as the city grew, there was a benefit because like downtown became like this hopping place. We got a lot more entertainment and venues coming in. We got all these sports teams moving in. We always had the Broncos and the Nuggets, but then, we got the Rockies, the Avalanche. And we got, the Rapids, the soccer team. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of good that has happened to Denver as it has grown. But there are some negative things, and I think a lot of them are things that are facing cities all around the country.
Yeah, like growing pains.
Yeah. And from what I can tell, when I've gone out and talked to people, I think the biggest concern I hear from the people in Denver is that it's expensive. The cost of living,
it's insane.
In particular, housing. Housing is probably the number one thing that I hear people complain about, that housing is really expensive.
Yeah.
But the overall cost of living, groceries, gas, like everything, it's getting really expensive to live here.
Yeah, we're both from New Jersey, which typically has always been more expensive. Mm-hmm. And I think in the past 5 years, specifically Denver has shot up way past cost of living in Jersey. Do you know what the main cause of housing going up? Is it just not enough housing being built?
I think that's part of it, but it's also like right now we have this whole property tax issue in Colorado that is something I feel like our state legislators have not done a good job of addressing. They even called that special session, and they really didn't present much of a solution. This past session, they did pass something, but it really isn't the solution that we need here in Colorado, because that's going to be passed on. Even if you're not a homeowner, you just rent, that the people who own the house are going to pass the costs on to the renters. So it's going to affect everybody. The cost of lumber shot up because of inflation. So building materials have gone up, which makes houses more expensive to build. And then there's a lot of regulation that goes into housing they've made it harder on people who build houses. So again, it's short-sighted to just think this is only going to affect the people building the house, because again, they pass that on to whoever buys the house. If they rent it out, they pass that on to whoever rents the house. So there's a variety of things that are coming together to cause housing to be so expensive.
Do you know, I heard that like a lot of the migrants coming from Venezuela right now are actually being given like $5,000 by the mayor. Do you know if that's true or not, or just?
I think that is true. Really? They said that they were gonna like cap it, like, all right, no one, like, we're done right here, so no one else. But everyone who came in up to this point, they were giving them almost like an allowance for their rent. Like they were given a certain amount of money for rent. They were given several other perks, which I'm not like completely against. I do have compassion for the people coming here. I understand. If I were in their situation, I would want to come to America too.
Yeah, and the alternative is homelessness, right? Which I think would affect the city in a worse way.
But there is a point where this is unsustainable. We can't have everyone in the world who's in a bad situation come and live here. We would like to help them, but it's just not a practical solution to the problem on a worldwide scale. So I have heard that. I don't have the details with that in front of me, but I do believe, I know that is true. I heard the mayor speak once. I was at an event where he was, and he said that, like, well, they stopped it at this point. But what happens when the next like 40,000 people show up? They're probably going to get the same thing. Like at some point they're like, all right, you guys get this too.
Yeah. And is Denver still a sanctuary city? Do you think that's part of the reason we have so many people coming here?
Yes, but
we are.
Okay. It's funny. Another day I was at an event where the mayor was speaking, and someone asked him about the sanctuary status, and he said, it's because of the state. The state passed these rules. It wasn't us. We're just going along with them. And then I went to another event right after that, and someone mentioned that the governor, they were talking to the governor, Polis, and he said, it's not us. Denver is choosing to do this. It's like no one wants to take responsibility for that sanctuary status. But I believe they're both responsible. The state has done things where they've mentioned they're not going to cooperate with ICE or other federal agencies. And as has the city a few years ago, I don't know if you remember at the city and county building, they had the giant banner up, "We love immigrants." Just is fine. You know, we do love everyone, but you are kind of sending a message to people that if you go to Denver, you'll be taken care of.
Right.
And it does incentivize people to come here. So whether or not they say there is a sanctuary status, there are incentives for people to come to Denver. And one thing, people do cross over, like say they cross over into El Paso or that, Denver's a closer spot than like Chicago or New York. You just come straight up I-25 and you're here. So
right. Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, I agree. I think the idea of a sanctuary city is great, but when you have, there's a cap to it because obviously, you know, the city can only afford so much.
Yeah, there's a video on YouTube. If you were to look up like bubblegum immigration, there is a man he illustrates it very well with a bunch of gumballs. And I think each gumball is supposed to represent a certain amount of like people in the world who live under the poverty line. And there's these giant jars. And then he shows like every year America brings in like 2 million legally.
Yeah. Wow.
And he puts like 2 gumballs over. And you can see that it's really insignificant when you look at the problem on a worldwide level. And then, of course, every year this many more people enter into poverty. And he just kind of shows how this immigration into countries like the United States is not really the solution, because the problem is the places these people are fleeing. Like, why are they fleeing these places? What's happening there that's causing people to leave? And he even brings up the point that a lot of the people who come here to make that trek, they're young people, they're healthy people, they're motivated people. Like, these are the people who would be affecting change in the countries they're leaving. But rather than working towards change there, they just come here. And so really the solution on a worldwide level is to do something to help these communities that are in poverty, to help people raise themselves out of poverty, not just bring them into another country or move them somewhere else. That's really not the solution to the problem.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Do you see a sharp divide between the Trump faction of the GOP and then the rest of the GOP? Is there a big policy difference between the two? Like, have you?
That's funny. Like, there is kind of a divide right now, and there's this little. I saw one article recently calling it like a civil war, and I don't know if they were just talking about Colorado, and I think they kind of blamed me for that, but that's another subject. But there is kind of a split between the more Trumpy side of the party and then the classic Republicans. But what's funny is policy-wise, I think we're on the same page. So it's kind of ridiculous that there's any infighting at all, because we want the same things. I think the messaging is the problem. The messaging from some people is a little more aggressive than I think others would like. And I think that's the problem, more so than the actual policies.
Yeah, just because even the way you talk about immigration, I could see, the Trump side of the GOP not being okay with that, even though at the end of the day, they would agree that legal immigration is a good thing and all that kind of stuff. How do you have you? Which side is really winning? Even though you both sort of want the same thing, has Trump really changed the GOP forever?
I think it depends where you are, and he has. If not forever, he's changed it for a while. It's going to be a long time, and I don't think it's bad. They call him a populist, being that, and some people make that out to be a bad thing, but just being that he's like for the people. I think his approach is good. Because I think, looking at the president, it's the president's job to take care of the people of the United States.
Yeah.
And the people of the United States should come first. And I don't see anything wrong with that. Donald Trump's been very bold about saying that, and some people find that offensive. I don't know why. I would expect any president to do that. The president of France should put the people of France ahead of the people of the United States. The leader of Japan should put the people of Japan ahead of the people of other countries. Like, that's your job as the leader of your country, is to put your people first. And so I think being bold about saying that's not wrong. I think people kind of twist that into meaning other things, and I don't know why they do that, because I think it just makes sense. Joe Biden should be an America first president. Every president should be. Do what's best for the people of your country. Then you have the senators who are supposed to put the people of their state first, because they represent that state. Then you go to the House, and they should be putting the people of their districts first. Like, that's just the way it's supposed to be. And so I think populism is a positive thing, even though some people want to make it out to be negative.
Yeah.
As a congressman, would you vote to ban stock trading for Congress people, for elected officials?
I would. I think that if insider trading is against the law, the people at the very top who are making decisions that are going to affect commerce in this country and business in this country should not be allowed to profit off of that with information they may know in the same way. So I do think that that is something that should be banned. Unfortunately, I think the enforcement of that could be kind of difficult, because there's going to be so many ways around it. Yeah. You would just give money to like your son to go, or a friend, like, don't tell them this is mine. Go put this money over here. But in theory and in principle, I think it should be illegal for people in Congress or at the federal level to profit off of that.
What do you think your biggest, like, let's say you do make it into office, what do you think your biggest learning curve is going to be getting there? Because I always hear new congressmen or senators talking about this. Specifically, I'm thinking of Tulsi Gabbard, who said she was really excited. She got there and she was like, shit, this is seriously corrupt.
I love Tulsi, by the way.
Yeah.
But
she said she was shocked by how corrupt it was.
I would love it if she were the vice president, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
I know that's sort of a vague question. But are you?
No, I think that's a good question, because I haven't specifically heard her say that, but I can imagine her saying that. Well, I think like someone like myself, I have never been in Washington as a politician. I've never been part of that system before. So I can imagine that from the outside, I look at it with these like big ideas that I'm going to go in there and change things up. And look at it as like, constitutionally, how does this work? I can see that there probably are inner workings and ways of going about things in Washington that I have no idea about. And I think no one knows until you get there. I'm going to be just one of like 400 something people. So I may go in there and be like, I want term limits, which I do. But can I actually accomplish that when I get there is going to be a whole nother thing. I think that there's a certain way, I think, to get things done. You do have to work with other people, and you do have to negotiate things. And I can see how that can kind of become dirty and gross in wheeling and dealing to get things you want passed. And I don't look forward to that, because I wish it could go just the way it's supposed to be written. Like, this is what you do. You come up with this, you go to the floor, you present it, you vote on it. And it was that simple. But I know there probably are a lot of behind the scenes inner workings that I would imagine that's going to be difficult to deal with.
Yeah, with all the lobbyists. And I mean, that's part of the reason we need term limits. So there's fresh people like you coming in every few years.
Yeah, because if you're there long enough, your world, the bubble that you live in, is going to be DC politicians, lobbyists, and big money donors. Whereas like right now, I don't really know any of those people. So when things come up, the first thing that's going to come to my head are like the people I've talked to in my community. And I know like what are they going to think of me if I vote one way or the other? And that's how it should be. You should think of those people, not what is this big donor going to think of me if I go against what they want? Or what is the lobbyist going to think of? Or what is my party going to think if I go against them? That shouldn't be your prime concern.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
What are the chances of a Republican winning in Denver? Is Denver? I mean, I know Denver always leans. Denver always leans.
It's a little
left,
difficult.
Are the dynamics changing with this upcoming election? Because I know people are, not happy with the Democratic Party. Is that affecting local politics at all?
I hope so. The last round we had, I believe the Democrat candidate got like almost 80% of the vote, and the Republican got 17% of the vote.
Wow.
So that's where Denver was 2 years ago. What's going to happen this time, I don't know. I also know, and the candidate who ran as a Republican, I know her personally. She's a wonderful person. I love her. But she kind of did it just to put her name on the ballot. She didn't really run a campaign. Like, she didn't go around and do interviews like this or talk to people. It was just putting her name on the ballot. So by my actually having a campaign and going out and doing this, we'll see how much that changes things. And I do think people are tired. And when I look at, one thing I think is funny, you hear a lot of people, not just in Denver, but in a lot of cities, who talk about the system is flawed, the system is against us, the system this, the system that, the system's racist, the system's this. Mm-hmm. And I asked them, like, all right, so here in Denver, all your city council people are Democrats. Your mayor is a Democrat. Your councilwoman's a Democrat. Your two senators are Democrats. All your house reps are Democrats. Your state senators are Democrats. Your president is a Democrat. So what is this system that you're talking about that's the problem? Now, I'm not blaming Democrats. I'm just saying it's something to think about. What is the system that is oppressing you?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see a third party just break through one day. But I do feel like Colorado's on closer than other places than that, even though we're not close at all. But
yeah, we have, I think, Colorado is the home of the Libertarian Party. They started here. And I was talking to a libertarian today. I do believe that Colorado has a very libertarian philosophy in general. So I think that both parties kind of have to reach to that, because I think people in Colorado are just like, we don't care, do whatever you want, just leave me alone and let me do my thing. Which is evident by many of the things that have been passed in Colorado that are legal here, that aren't legal in some other places. So I don't know. I think it is possible in Colorado for third parties to break through. But not at the level where they're going to have a huge impact. Like, we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're years away probably. Yeah, I did see your video about your most recent, or you tried mushrooms, because before we talked, I had asked you about that. And now,
it was funny. We did that, and I put a video, and I'm like, no one cared. Like, is that not interesting enough? I did mushrooms. Someone running for Congress doing mushrooms is not interesting. I don't know. Yes, I did. And that came about because I have two really good friends. They run a website called psych4.com, I believe.
Okay.
But they're very big into the whole mushroom thing. And so there was a bill that was being passed that they were putting forth under the guise of protecting children from disinformation on the internet or something. And really, it would have stopped the talk on social media. Like, you couldn't even talk about like mushrooms or any kind of natural medicine. So they got a big group together to protest against that. And it worked. It ended up not passing. But anyway, in that process, I went and met with them one day, and I was listening to all these people in this room talking about the benefits of mushrooms and how mushrooms helped them. And in talking to them, I told everyone, like, I fully support that. I think that we should look at natural medicines and find ways these natural medicines can help people. But then, of course, the question comes up, well, have you done mushrooms? And my answer was no. I've never done mushrooms before. So it kind of was, the next thought was, well, how can I really be someone who's saying this is something we should legalize or really like decriminalize is what I think should be done.
Medical use, right?
Yes.
Research.
And do more research on this. Can this actually help people? What is the benefit from it? That I should try it. So
the FDA did just actually pass a law allowing for MDMA ecstasy research. So that's going to probably start happening here next year. Yeah.
So it led to me connecting with, like I said, the individuals at Psyched 4 and do something where I tried mushrooms just to see what would happen. And it was quite an experience.
Yeah,
no, you're good. Everyone loves dogs. Like, watch the dogs. Just put it on mute and watch the dogs. You don't have to listen to us.
No, I think there's incredible benefits to psychedelics, and the dangers will disappear with regulation.
Yeah, like if people start looking into what's happening, there are some things we can help with within this situation. Like for my experience, and now I was someone who went in. I was honestly kind of skeptical with all like the things people were saying about how it cured this, it cured that, practically cured cancer, and they were like, whatever. I'm like, all right, that's fine. Like if it helped you, good. I'm not going to dispute that. But I was skeptical. Like, did it really help you? Then I thought the same thing like about medical marijuana. Like, are you really taking this because it's medical, or do you just want to do marijuana? Either way, like I don't care. Like it's you're an adult, do what you want. But I went into this experience not expecting to have any benefit at all. Like I didn't think anything would happen. I'd see some colors and shapes, and it'd be cool, and then it'd wake up and it'd be over. I don't know how deep you want me to like go into this, but like I actually had a very dark experience.
Yeah.
As it was happening,
that can happen.
It was very, very dark. Like it started with all the colors and that, like things were shining and there were rainbows.
How much did you eat? How many? Like I
don't remember. I did what they call a therapeutic dose.
Okay.
So it was beyond just a like recreational dose.
You got to be careful.
But the thing when I did this though, like I was monitored the entire time because they were there and just kind of making sure I was okay. So I was in a safe place doing this. So I saw all those colors, and then all of a sudden like something really dark. And I don't know if it was me who said this or something else said it. Like, no, you don't get it, dude. We're ending this. And then like everything went black and white, and I went in this like dark tube, and it was very dark. I felt like I was dying. And I felt like I stopped breathing, and I felt like I was dead at one point. I felt like I was going through rigor mortis, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't breathe, and it was very uncomfortable and very awful. But there was one point towards the end as I was coming out of this where like I said, the friend I have, I was talking to her and explaining to her what just happened. And I was like, there's something dark. And it was like right here. It was right here. And then I touched my shoulder. And I realized that I've had this pain in this shoulder for like a year. Wow. And last year, my dad had a stroke and some other things. And I feel like I just started getting this like tension in my chest and in my stomach. And I just felt, it's a physical thing. I need to do yoga and stretch, drink more water. I'm physically just tight. I didn't relate it to anxiety. But when I came out of that, it was gone 100%. Wow. My shoulder didn't hurt anymore. This pain was all gone. My gut felt better. And even with that, I'm like, maybe this will last a day, a week. It's been over a month and I still feel completely better. And I don't know what happened. I don't know why that happened. I don't know how that helped. But somehow going through that process released anxiety in me that I didn't even know was there. So I definitely think like we need to explore this. Like whatever happened to me, we need to figure out how did that help me and how can we use that to help other people who may have anxiety. And like I'm one of the most mellow people in the world. I don't know how I had anxiety inside me like that, but it was there. I even like for a while I was like, it's just like my heart. Am I gonna have a heart attack or like what's going on in me that's causing this? And like I said, I took it as physical. Because I didn't think I was a stressed person or someone who had anxiety or any of that. But apparently I did. and I feel better now.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences. So
I don't know if I would do that again.
Yeah, it's scary. Now I'm afraid to do it again from the last one. But
yeah, because I even told her, like, at one point I told her, and I think having her there helped, because I was like, and I don't even know what it was, but like, it wants me to go down this tube, and I'm afraid if I go there, I'm gonna die, and I'm not breathing. So I was like, will you make sure I don't stop breathing? And if I stop, and of course during this whole time I'm like super high. I'm like, just make sure I don't die. He said, no, you're good. I'm like, make sure I don't die. And I went and I sat in the spot. I was like, something really bad is right there. I don't know what it is, but something really bad is right there, and it wants me to go there. And so I went and sat there, and and it was so vivid and so dark. Like, there were like these dead bodies, like, pulling me towards them. And like, I wasn't afraid of them. It almost was like, this is what's supposed to happen. This is the process of dying.
Maybe you face death.
It was very wild. Like I said, I don't know if I would want to go through that again, but the physical benefit I got from it. And again, saying I was someone who was skeptical, so it's not psychosomatic, because I did not expect anything to happen, and I didn't even know I had a problem. But when it was over, I'm like, all that I've been feeling here is gone. Mm-hmm. It's just completely gone, and it's never come back.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Not that I'm telling anyone out there to go do mushrooms. Like, I'm just saying, don't do drugs, they're bad. But in some cases, if there's a benefit, like, I think we should research this, because I also have read about how psychedelics and that have helped people who have PTSD to deal with that. So, we need to look into this. Like, there needs to be more research to find out what is happening and how can this help people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually have a book sitting under the TV in front of us called The Handbook of Medical Hallucinogenics. And it's like all research dating back to late 1800s, early 1950s. And then nothing happened when it was made illegal, like 70s on. And now it's picking up again. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what happened. I am no expert in this at all. But I do know the outcome for me ended up being good. So I don't know if I ever do get a bunch of stress in there again. I would probably go through that.
It's better than taking like a pharmaceutical.
Yeah, because it is natural.
Day,
so
right?
Like at the end.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but like I had no side effects or anything afterwards, or through it, other than dying during the middle of the process. So
that's a cool experience.
It was a cool experience. And then I was also like, I don't know if this is just because it's been implanted in my head that these are the things I'm supposed to see, but it got very indigenous. Cool. I was seeing like all kinds of feathers and like petroglyphs, and it got very Aztec-y for a while. Wow. All the images that I was seeing, and I'm like, is that what I'm actually seeing, or am I only seeing that because like I've been told that's what I'm supposed to see? So like subconsciously, I'm seeing these images that are very like my shirt. Yes, like this. I've seen things like that. I don't know, but it was an experience.
That's cool. That's cool. So going back quickly to the biggest concerns you hear from people in Denver, I'm curious, are Denver citizens still traumatized by COVID? Is that it? Do people want retribution? No, they're over it, because I see a backlash where they want people held responsible, and I don't really know if I can stand behind that. I'm like, maybe we should just move forward. Is that an issue that
I think people have moved on from COVID.
I agree.
Although I work at the airport, the number of people I still see wearing N95 masks I find interesting. I almost want to go up to them and ask why. Like maybe they have some underlying condition where they need it. I don't know. Like maybe they need that mask. Or are they genuinely still scared of COVID at this point? And a lot of them are young people. So like I can see if they were like 98 years old and they don't want to get a flu and die. But a lot of young people I see still wearing masks. And so I do kind of wonder, like, are you really scared? And you're that scared, but you don't realize that everyone else around you is not wearing a mask and we're fine. I almost feel bad for them. Or are you doing this because you want us to see how like good of a person you are? Like, is it like virtue signaling? I don't know. I don't want to judge their reason. And, maybe they do have a valid reason. What do I know? But that was a sidetrack from your actual question. Your question as to should we go after the people and make them pay for what they did?
No,
I don't know if I put it quite like that.
I wouldn't put it like that either, but
I do think that some of the things that happened from COVID were pretty negative in our society, especially for young people. The number of kids who missed out on like a high school graduation, or young little kids who were doing school over the internet, but that didn't work for them. So they basically lost like a year of education. And that, at that age, they may never make up for that. Some of the like little small businesses, the number of small businesses that went out during that process, and the lives that sorry, my voice cracked. I'm going through puberty again. The lives that were affected by that. I do think there should be some accountability to that, and we should look into what happened. And if it was just a genuine concern, because I also, especially at the beginning, we didn't know what was going on. Were they really just trying to help people, or at a certain point, was there some maliciousness behind what was going on?
Yeah.
I would be up for looking into that to find out what happened. Yeah. Why did this happen? Especially with schools, why were the kids held back for so long? Now, here in Colorado, wasn't horrible, but I've heard some places where schools were closed for like almost 2 years, which I think is ridiculous. I think by that next fall of 2020, every child should have been back in school.
I was a middle school teacher, and like sixth graders, they couldn't. The reading level from like pre-COVID, post to pre-COVID was crazy, and it's not their fault. It's just they didn't do their homework when you're a sixth grade boy.
Like, all right, you're watching this video, but you're at your house, so all your stuff's there. Like I when I went to school in college, I took classes online, and I did not learn anything from any online class that I took. Yeah. So, but that's me. There are some people who maybe they do well with online classes. Mm-hmm. I did not.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is because I feel like I hear a lot of right-wing media outlets really pushing that, and I'm wondering how does that really align with how the people feel? Yeah, or is it just clickbait?
They want Fauci now.
Yeah. They really are implying that there was a malicious intent with the vaccine, and with the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. I'm just curious if the public really, is that an issue for them?
I think it sounds like the public don't care anymore. But I do think that we, as a culture or as a society, especially our political leaders, do need to look at what happened in COVID to make sure that doesn't happen again. Because I do think there were abuses of power, and there were things that happened that were like what we talked about, schools and businesses. People's lives were affected greatly by this. And I do think there was a point where, like, we kind of knew very early on, little kids are fine. They're not dying. Children, young people are okay. It's mainly the elderly and people with underlying conditions. We knew that fairly early on, but a lot of the policies did not reflect that for a very long time. So I do think we need to look into why did that happen. And I don't want to impugn negative motives on anyone, but I think it's something to look at. But I'd also agree with you in that, like, I don't know if you came out and said this or just implied it, but the general public isn't really concerned with this anymore.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I think a lot of it is probably just clickbait, and like outrage media type stuff. But yeah, I thought I'd bring it up. Well, yeah, we were connecting to what concerns local Denver people the most. Yeah. We talked about housing. Is there a number 2 and 3 that really stands out for you that you're running on?
To me, the two big points I talk to people about, number 1 is the cost of living, and it's that by far, but then would be crime. If you look at Colorado, I think Colorado is now ranked like the number three most dangerous state. And in Colorado, much of
in
it's
terms
property
of like violent or property or
it's mainly
Yeah.
property
And
crime in
theft, right?
Colorado. Like I work with a guy who's had his window broken on his car 3 times in the past
Jesus.
year. And they didn't steal anything. They just broke his window.
What do they call that when like a bunch of homeless people have sex in the car?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I forget the term.
Are you saying that's
Oh,
what happened?
Maybe. Yeah.
Should I tell him that
Yeah.
there's homeless people having sex
Yeah.
3 times? You might want to
One
get
of my
a new
friend's
car.
cars got stolen by a homeless person.
A new car.
Wait.
That car.
Yeah, seriously. Wait, but that's
I
fascinating.
did not know that there was a specific word. I want to talk about
Yeah,
that.
it's from that Will Ferrell. It's from that Will Ferrell movie. Maybe. But yeah, it's like Dirty Mike and the Boys.
Yeah, and there is that, and I think it's kind of related. Like under this, I think it is kind of broad. Like in Colorado, it's not like people are just like getting stabbed in the street everywhere. You would hear about that more, but there is a lot of property crime going on. Fentanyl is a massive issue in Colorado. There's a movie called Devastated. It's a documentary. It's free on YouTube. Look up Colorado Devastated. It's really, really good. After you watch that documentary, it's hard to not be moved to feel we have to do something. And a lot of this is linked to the fact that our southern border is so open. And there are people coming into the country. And I do tell people, I admit the vast majority of people coming in are good people who just want a better life. And that's great. But when you have, I think they're projecting that by like the end of this year, under this current administration, like 10 million people will have entered the country from the southern border illegally. Let's say just like 1 out of 1,000 of them was coming in with ill intent,
which is reasonable.
That's like 100,000 people.
Yeah, which is It's a reasonable number to think 1 out of every 1,000 might have ill intent.
Yeah, it's probably greater than that, but I'm just like, let's go on the mall end.
Yeah.
And then you also bring in the amount of fentanyl coming across the border that's being distributed. Some of it looking like what's terrible about fentanyl is that you could be someone who's just like, I want a Xanax. Your friend gives you a Xanax, you take it. That was like a Xanax that was laced with fentanyl.
Yeah.
And you die. Just like one time, you die.
That's what I'm terrified about, with my little brothers. They're in their early 20s. I like something like that happens.
Young people who are doing this where their friends are getting drugs illegally, and maybe
they try coke one night, and
because like back in the 90s, 80s when I was younger, you didn't die the first time you tried cocaine. Not that I recommend doing cocaine either, people.
We don't endorse any illegal drugs.
But it was like you would die if like you got hooked on it and you went down this long path and then you overdosed at some point and died. They don't even call it overdosing with fentanyl. It's because there is no like good dose. It's a poisoning. Yeah. You're getting poisoned because you took fentanyl and you died. And you could even be someone who's not even wanting to do like cocaine. You just want, like I said, a Xanax or a Prozac or what. I don't know. Any of these others. And if they've made them, like, there's a whole process that they're coming in like from China and then they're going to Mexico. The cartels are pressing the pills to look like other things, coming up here, selling them. And I don't know, like it's crazy to me.
What do you think about the Chinese immigrants coming in? There's been like over 60,000 Chinese male immigrants cross over the border.
I not that I don't care, but like wherever you come from, I think it's the same. Like most probably coming here for good reasons.
You don't think it's like a deep, like the Chinese government's going to overthrow us, and that's why they're sending in all these men? Like it's no women.
Now you're going down.
It's just men.
Theories, young men. But
because China has no young women, so all the young men leave the country to find a wife.
I don't mean that. Who am I to say you're wrong? Like, what if something does happen between, the United States and China? Yeah. Maybe like China invades Taiwan. We do like what's happening with Ukraine. We go to support Taiwan. There's an uprising of Chinese nationals in this country I don't know. Like that's
China's
I can't
known
say
for
that's
their
not
spies,
possible.
too.
It's a little out there, but I don't know.
China's known for their spies. They have professors and things like they work normally for 20 years.
And didn't they like find like, and this is not a conspiracy theory, that there were like Chinese police stations in this country.
What?
Like that's ridiculous to me that could happen.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. It's crazy.
But it did. But that did happen. So if that happened, maybe Hans isn't so crazy with his crazy conspiracy.
That could happen, but only five libertarian mayors.
Yeah, only 5. I know. There were more Chinese police stations than there were libertarian mayors.
That is sad. And I do want to touch on this is a totally random topic, but the presidential race. But before that,
he's like salty.
Back to
salty knees.
Back to the fentanyl. You said crime and fentanyl are like probably number 2 and 3.
They're kind of like I have crime as my number 2. What I've done, if you go to any of my social medias, posted at the top, is what I call my commitment to Denver.
I'd like to read that.
There's 2 big ones, and under each one is like 3 subtopics. So the first one's the cost of living, then is crime, and so there are 3 under that. But this kind of is all under that, because I feel like in Denver, I don't see that there's one specific crime that's standing out so big that you notice it above the others. But there, like I said, there's property crime, there's this whole fentanyl thing, and homelessness is a problem. And I think that part of like drug addiction is part of that.
I feel like, so we're facing like pretty typical problems that every city is facing. And I feel like we're doing fairly well compared to most cities. Is there one issue that you're saying there's not really one issue that stands apart from the rest? Like if you were to compare us to any similar sized city?
There are, and I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing. Because like a lot of these cities are having the same
we can't
problems.
have that attitude. You're right. Yeah.
And they're trying the same solutions, which is also a problem. I do think in the next several years we will see a difference between Denver and Aurora, because Denver and Aurora right now are taking very different paths on dealing with homelessness.
Oh, can you explain that?
And so I think it'll be interesting in like 5-10 years to see what happens. Denver is doing what most cities are doing, which is a housing first approach, which is kind of the typical way most cities approach this. Whereas Aurora's what they're doing is they're building a campus. And it's, in order to be there, you must you don't get a house right away. But you must agree to like go to rehab. You must agree to go to different programs to better yourself. Then they'll help you get a house.
It's like a full program.
Yeah. So like you have to
I like that.
Do something in order to move on to the next step. And if you don't want to do that, then they don't help you and you have to go somewhere else, which they're going to come to Denver. Right. In Denver, you get a house first. I don't know the specific stats, but I had heard of all like the 1,000-something people that went into these hotels and that Denver had bought, only like 5 people said, okay, I'll go to drug rehab.
That's wild. I mean,
because why would they?
They don't have to.
Yeah.
Have you heard of a program called Step Denver?
No.
That actually would probably be a really good guest for you. Not that I'm telling you what to do, but there's
love to have him on Step Denver.
There's a place downtown called Step Denver. And they do that approach. You could probably even go ask for a tour. I went there for a tour because a friend of mine was volunteering there. And I was really, really impressed with what they have there, because they do kind of have a program where right now, like it's for men. A men can come in, but in order to stay there, like you go through different steps. And so like when you first come in, there's this big room with just a bunch of beds. You stay in that room. And you have like 2 weeks to get a job, and they'll help you get a job. But like every day, it's almost military. Like you must make your bed, you must do this, you must, follow these rules. You need to be back by a certain time. After a while, you get to move to another area where they have like little private rooms, and then later they have like houses in the community you can go to. But you have to, you have to like progress up and through this.
Yeah.
And they have a much higher success rate than a lot of other programs in Denver do. It's not perfect, but it's a lot higher. And so that's kind of the method that Aurora's going through.
Well, that makes sense because you're building healthy habits. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just you're given a hotel room and I mean, I'm sure you've heard of what's happening in California. They spent $2 billion, something insane, on homelessness, and it just the numbers just doubled.
Yeah, it's
whatever they're doing, it's not working. Like, we need to get creative.
And there is, I think, like at the federal level, they've almost incentivized that. And this is also something I need to look into because I think the housing first model is what you must do to get federal funds. Step Denver does not get federal funds because they've not taken that approach. And I know Aurora is also not going to get federal funds because they're not going the housing first approach.
And that makes sense because the government, when you give someone a house right away, you can say, okay, we got them off the street, and it looks good for the government because the numbers go down quickly. But it doesn't actually
that
work.
Has to change. Like we can't say this is the only way you can get money, especially if a program has proven that it's working. Step Denver should be getting money for what they're doing as well, not just other people. So that is a problem that needs to be taken care of at the federal level, which I will find a way to fix that. Like I said, but then I have to go find other people in Washington to go along with me.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
I feel sorry. Were you about to say something?
No, I was gonna ask something totally off topic. So yeah,
he has another conspiracy.
I was curious because I've never met a Valdemar before, and I'm curious what you think of the Harry Potter books and Voldemort, and if that like impacts you at all.
Has that impacted my life?
Yeah,
it's turned me into who I am.
No, I'm not. Because you're the nicest guy ever. But I'm just saying, like,
well, thank you.
With Voldemort, like, and Valdemar, that.
Yeah, I know what's funny is like for a long time, I didn't like. I grew up a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh,
I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter.
I hope you have a birthday now.
Because Harry Potter was evil and about magic and wizards. So I didn't really get the reference for a long time. But then, like, I don't know. That was a long time ago. So that's really not an excuse. No, I do get it a lot. I get called not so as much now. Back during the peak of the Harry Potter craze, it was almost daily. I was referred to as Voldemort at some point or another. And I don't care. When I did finally watch, I had a roommate once who made me watch the whole series. I thought the first 4 movies were horrible. And like, why are you making me watch this? This is like for a 5-year-old. This is a children's movie. This is horrible. I do think though that the last 2 movies were really, really good. And I was like, all right, I kind of get it. I did have to watch those 7 horrible movies to get to watch this one.
You got to read.
This is really good. This one was really good. But I was rooting for Voldemort all the way through, even though I knew what the outcome was going to be. I went to Starbucks once, and the lady went to hand me my cup, and she looked at the name, and then she looked around, and I knew she doesn't want to say the name that's on the cup. That's mine. So I was like, yeah, that's probably mine. And I didn't even look. I just saw this is what I ordered. All right. And like an hour later, I had left the store. I was somewhere else. I went to throw the cup away, and I saw that it said Voldemort on the cup.
What?
Not Valdamar. So I was wondering, did they think that I said Voldemort? Or did they just write out Voldemort?
They must have. Yeah, that's weird.
But I didn't I didn't notice till I should have kept that cup.
Well, I know we're coming up on an hour, and that's about what we said we would do. Well, unless Wall Street Bitch, I know you have some gifts, but do we have any other last minute questions or Valdemar? Any?
Is there anything you'd like to cover? I was gonna ask in regards to the person that you're running against, who usually wins. Is there anything quickly that you could say, like, this is why I disagree with her, this is why you should vote for me? Is there any main point?
I don't want to badmouth her or anything. I just I just think looking at, she's been in Congress for 30 years.
Wow.
That alone.
Yeah.
And then before her, the lady who represented Denver before her was there for like 27 years or something. So Denver, since like 1974-ish, has only had 2 people represent them in 50 years. I think just for representation's sake, like, we need to be changing people out here in Denver more often. I don't know why we're in this habit of sending the same person back there for forever. The dogs heard us talking about Daggett and they got mad. The dog, it was the dog. The dog said, "Don't vote for Daggett."
Well, you definitely have our vote. I'm 100% behind the idea of a fresh mind getting into office, because I genuinely think that's one of the main issues is we have all these people who have been there for 30 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
and they don't
even 20 years is too much.
Yeah, yeah, seriously. So anyway, I appreciate you have the courage to run, and that segues into one of our gifts. We got you this stone.
Oh, you said gift. I thought you were saying gifts. I'm like, are you gonna like play gifts?
No, we got you this stone. This stone represents courage, and I thought, you obviously don't have to wear it, but it's like a courage good luck pendant.
I know the next time I'm on TV, you'll be like, how dare you not have our necklace? Well, that's super kind of you guys. I
don't know. For some reason, I just thought you could use it in the race ahead.
I will cherish. Appreciate you guys, because you were one of the first people who wanted to talk to me, even back when nobody cared about who I was.
And you've been on a run too. You've been on Fox News, right?
Yeah, recently I've been on almost every local station. I was interviewed by the New York Times, the Canadian Broadcasting Channel. I was in the Spectre over in the UK.
Wow.
Suddenly, I'm interesting now.
Yeah. I'm most curious about how you like.
We didn't talk about that.
It's fine. Yeah, well, that's not what we're about. But I am
talked about that.
That's what we figured. Yeah, I'm curious.
I mean, if you have questions, I'm not.
I am just curious what you thought of Kyle Clark.
Kyle was actually very nice.
Okay.
He does have a way. I think when he asks you a question, like he asks you the question, then he just gives you that Kyle stare. Which I can see why some people find that intimidating, where it's almost like you're being interrogated. But no, he's a super nice guy. I personally have no problems with him. I know there are a lot of Republicans and right wingers who do not particularly like him. I don't have an issue with him.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, thanks, Valdemar.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah.
You're our